All right, welcome everyone. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. Our hope and goal for the next little bit is to really review some of the building and project materials that are put together as a toolkit for parishes to really make sure that we can fulfill our own responsibilities and obligations well to our buildings. But as we start here, let's open with a prayer. And I discovered that a saint I'd never heard of before, Saint Vincent Ferrer, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly, but is the patron saint of builders. So let's start with a moment of prayer and we can ask for his intercession as well. In the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit. Thank you, Father, for this great day. Thank you for the gift that we have been blessed with in terms of our church buildings and property. We know that all of this ultimately belongs to you, God, and we ask for the grace and the blessing to be able to be good stewards of this property in order to serve and glorify you and your name, and to continue to further evangelize those who are with us today and who will come after us for many generations to come. In particular, we ask for the intercession of Saint Vincent Ferrer. We pray, dear Saint Vincent Ferrer, patron saint of builders, please intercede on behalf of all those who seek guidance and strength in their endeavors. May we follow in your footsteps of service to others, and may our actions bring glory to God. Amen. Let me ask all these prayers in Jesus' name. Amen. So we hope to have a little bit of fun today, as much fun as building policies and procedures can offer us. But I'm really glad. My name is Andrew Jardine. I'm the Chief Financial Officer for the diocese. I'm pleased to serve in this role for about a year and a half or so. And our team here this morning includes Dino DeMuro, and many of you know Dino if you've been involved in anything related to projects or buildings, in addition to being a great guy and just the very best temperament for this role. Dino is our construction and restoration manager, so he's a key point of contact and a really invaluable resource for engaging with projects across the diocese. And then Heidi Monteith is my administrative assistant and also the sort of key point person for anything related to properties and insurance and those kinds of issues as well. Heidi has a great skill set for understanding how all of these pieces and parts fit together. And she is a fantastic resource for parishes as well. I think one of the important things about buildings in our parish is that we have to remember that the churches that we've inherited are really invaluable places for worship, but invaluable places where we can really do the work of church. They can be outposts for us to be places where we are fed spiritually, and that where we go and share the joys of living out the gospel together and the struggles of living out the gospel together. And without churches themselves, without some of the other properties that we have, it makes for a very difficult thing. So we've been blessed at this time in our diocese to, have somewhere in the range of about 120 properties that we have inherited from previous generations and from those that we have some new properties, but in many cases they're built by generations before us. So we have a great responsibility and an obligation and a privilege to be able to steward those buildings well so that they serve their purpose today and will continue to serve their purpose for generations to come. So we're not just caring for them to get through the next few years short term, but we have a long-term outlook on our buildings and properties. And really that's the perspective that our Building and Loan Commission takes when they're reviewing property policies. And it's certainly the perspective that Bishop Fabro takes when he's considering long-term impact of properties, is that these are really great tools that can serve the church and do it quite well. So we have a few updates we wanted to address. In particular, we have recently updated the building and policy package. Dino's going to run through a big chunk of that with you today. We're not going to be able to address all your questions or all of the items in that policy package today, but we just wanted to make sure we highlighted some of the key things that we often get questions about and that we feel are really important for you to be aware of. And then secondly, just to make sure that you're well aware that anytime there's any question, concern, trying to understand how you work through a process, please give us a call at any time, and we can walk with you through that, because it's not necessarily always straightforward. It's different than doing a project, renovating your basement at home. It's a different kind of construction endeavor. So we're here to help you. We're here to work with you and to walk with you. Understand that sometimes it can feel like a tremendous burden, and we understand that. And the point is, going through this struggle together continues to bless those in our diocese, and across our communities, to really ensure that these symbols of hope, these churches, are there for many, many more years to come. So without further ado, Dino, I'm going to pass things over to you to start walking us through some of these policy packages. And then quickly, before we jump to you, though, I should note, any questions you have along the way, pop it into, I think it's either in the chat or the Q&A box. Heidi's going to keep a close eye on that. We'll keep this as informal as we can within a webinar format. But if there's something that you feel that we're not addressing or that you had questions about as we're speaking about it, feel free to ask a question then, and we'll give some time at the end to ask questions too, so that everybody gets a chance to say what's on your mind, to ask a question, and then there's lots of follow-up after the fact too. So feel free to contact us at any time. So over to you, Dino.
Thanks, Andrew. Good morning, everyone. So basically, I've shared my screen, and we're on the Diocese of London website, and I'm hoping everyone can see that. So when you're there, basically going to start at this point to show you where some of these policies are, and focusing on building and property. So scrolling down from the main page of our website, you'll come down to the bottom, home, contact us, and in the middle column, go to policies, procedures, and guidelines. So you'll click on that, and you'll see policies, procedures, and guidelines from A all the way to O, technology, starting with summary of diocesan policy, procedures, and guidelines. So today we're going to focus in on G, building and property. So you click on that link, and it'll take you to capital projects and then maintenance. Those are the two that we're going to focus on today. So starting with capital projects policy, it was updated in 2024. We'll click on that. This here is the policies for funding and completion of parish capital projects within the diocese. Basically, the definition of a capital project is found on page 2. And just read through that. A capital project includes, but is not limited to, any project in which the general requirements of the Ontario Building Code will require the engagement of an architect and/or professional engineer for design and review. Almost all capital projects undertaken at our parishes require the services of an architect and/or engineer, because our buildings are classified as assembly occupancy buildings under 2.3 of the Ontario Building Code. Basically, when we do any works, and if we're making changes that relate to building code requirements, we would need the assistance of a consultant, that is an architect and or professional engineer, to support us, create the new design, and then we have a contractor follow through with the support of the architect to review to make sure there's conformance of that change.
And I just want to highlight that it's a really important point, because it does come up quite a bit in terms of why do we have to bring on a consultant? It's extra cost, it can add to the time and so on. But in many cases, particularly with the major projects, we are required to do that, not only through insurance, but also through the building code itself. So this is not an attempt to sort of make things more difficult or put up more obstacles, but it just trying to meet our obligations from a building code perspective.
So looking further, in our building condition reports, and they're defined here under page 3, we strive for the building condition reports to be completed to have on hand every 25 years. Now, some parishes have them in hand and some don't. The point of the building condition report is to review the building and to have a sense of the condition of the different elements. And then you'll be able to have a priority list established of works that need to happen over the next 5, 10, 15 years. The elements of the building condition report we'll touch on further into this policy. So looking at the condition reports, the responsibility and care of our properties is defined. We touched on the architect and professional engineer and how we select them. We'll look at basically the project thresholds are of importance here on what they look like as far as the projects, and I'll just turn this over to Andrew as far as the capital approval limits.
So
On page 6.
Yeah, so on a couple of years ago, this was updated, and so now the projects that will be $25,000 or over need to come to my office for review and approval. And Dino would work closely on those projects to sort of shepherd them through to that point. So that is the threshold that has been determined by first the Building and Loan Commission and approved by Bishop Federal. Items below 25,000 can be approved by the pastor. There are some still limits in terms of what would be approved within a project, if it's liturgical space or whatever it might be. So we still have some obligations. It's not just a blanket approval up to 25,000, but in that case, any questions that anyone have, we can walk through with you there. A project between 25,000 and 100,000 will come to my office. If it's 100,000 or more, then it needs to go to our Building and Loan Commission for review and approval. And that's where the limits have been, at least for the last couple of years. And it's helpful to help us stay on top of the work that's going on across the different parishes.
Moving along to page 7, as Andrew indicated, liturgical projects. Whenever we're doing changes, for example, the altar, if it's placement of a tabernacle, even the baptismal font, this would require approval from the liturgical minister. Currently, Father John Komisky is taking that role as we are looking to hire a new liturgical minister. And this would be really the first approval that would be required. So if the parish, the pastor, business manager put together a request, for example, they want to relocate the baptismal font to the entrance of the nave, and they would then require an approval and require that to be presented to the liturgical minister for approval. And then after that approval is in place, then we can look ahead at the project. Going back to building condition reports, on page 11 of this document, it highlights the elements, as I scroll through here, the elements that are of importance when we gain a building condition report. And here, condition reports, again, page 11, would highlight roof, masonry, stormwater management, windows, door systems, a structural review, life safety issues, septic and water well systems, lightning protection, electrical mechanical review, hazardous material review, and interior finishes. Some of you may know, but a hazardous material survey is a document that we require for our buildings. And I must say, we're still playing catch up with some of our parishes that don't have them. And we would have one for the church, the rectory, if they have a hall, but all buildings within the parish, we would have a report defining where there is asbestos.
Dino, can you just speak briefly to the process for a building condition report, who we would bring in and how they can, what that process would look like in terms of preparing? Because it's a bit more involved than just kind of walking around with a checklist.
Right, right. Sure. So basically, we would be calling on an architect to lead this building condition review and then bring on possibly a mechanical electrical engineer to look at the mechanical and electrical systems, focusing in on your heating and cooling units, your controls for those units. And then for the electrical, just checking out the electrical panels, the services, ensuring they're up to code. And then also a structural engineer, for example, may come in to look at the interior walls and ceilings. It may be a cathedral ceiling, looking at the arches and the conditions of the ceiling lines, and also bringing in equipment to review the exterior walls. For example, we have done roof stabilization projects, which include the supply and install of tie rod systems to bring the walls back plumb and parallel. And we would require the review by a structural engineer. So those would be basically the key three consultants that would come together to do a condition report. And based on their review, they'll provide you a document in writing where basically the conditions are recorded. And we would also be asking them for an approximate construction cost for those upgrades that are required. So at the end of the day, the parish would have a condition report along with some budget numbers for those upgrades that would be required.
Yeah, so this is really helpful in terms of the planning process you need to look at for when you're looking at the next number of years for what work is going to need to be done on the building. And the condition report can really quickly highlight and identify some of the things that you should be focusing on. There's the things that are really nice to work on. I mean, I know in my own home, it's nice to get new carpets and things like that. It makes it feel better, but then you got to replace your furnace or your driveway, and it's just not as exciting. But these are important things that can help identify some of the key things that we should be focusing on in the buildings.
Just moving along. So when we look at page 14, I'm just on 12. We touched about the consultants. We look at basically here is the capital project application. This would be the one that goes to the Building and Loan Commission for a project over $100,000. We have a fillable document I'll show you on the website, but this has been created recently to assist parishes as we've noticed several questions and comments come from the Building and Loan Commission when projects are being presented. So we've tailored it into an application form which answers a number of the questions and provides the commission, these answers and supports the ask from the parish. So this has been incorporated for the parish, and it also assists the parish in the project process on their behalf and graduates the project at the parish level. And basically starts off parish name, family parish name, pastor, business manager. And basically, like I said, we have a fillable document available online, and this would be required when going to the Building and Loan Commission for a project over $100,000.
And this can look a little bit overwhelming because it's asking for so much information. But in reality, if you have this information, and ultimately you should have this information before going into a major project like this, it's just going to help map out the rest of the process as well. And as Dino said, the Building and Loan Commission has a responsibility to understand the scope of the project and the aspects that are in this application. So previously, we would get a presentation and it would have important information, but there might be a chunk missing where we'd say, we need a little more detail on X, Y, and Z. Not that it didn't exist, but we just didn't know what it was. So this is a tool and an attempt to be able to say, what are all the things that the Building and Loan Commission can ask up front related to its own obligations and its terms of reference to make sure that parishes are well aware of the kinds of questions that they may face when they come to the Building and Loan Commission. Now, the Building and Loan Commission is made up of folks from across the diocese. So we have some pastors on there. We have some business managers. We have some volunteers from the community on there, former people who are retired from the construction industry. So it's a really knowledgeable group of people that understand not just construction itself, but the unique challenges of construction within a church community. So they're a really great group, and so the more information that can be provided, the more guidance that they can offer, and ultimately they make recommendations to Bishop Favreau, so they need to make sure that they're doing their due diligence as well. But again, with this, it's intended to be a tool to be helpful. We're happy to walk through parishes through this application to make sure that you have the information that you need, and if you had questions about how to get some of it, we can certainly guide you through that.
So I'll just go back to the website and you'll see, like we looked at, we reviewed the capital projects policy. And the second one is the fillable application, and it's here. You can work with that when you're preparing the project application. I'm just going to highlight the application for capital expenditure. I'll click on that. This is a PDF, and you can save it and then complete this for projects over 25,000, but under the 100,000 threshold. Basically, you're completing this along with your quotes that you've gained. Let's say you're doing some HVAC, heating and cooling upgrades. Basically, the parish of, city, parish number, totaling in the contractor's quotes, material. Sometimes some of these do require the assistance of a consultant, and feel free to reach out and check in with us. And if we would have a consultant, they may have costs, and we would blend those costs into this cost, into this project value, filling in the purpose. And here we would have the pastor sign along with the finance committee and the business manager. Once that's complete with the quotes, you can send us a PDF copy to Andrew's attention. We'll review that. And then once it's approved, Andrew will sign off and we will return a PDF approval. And that's where we move to the next step, and that is the contract with the contractor. Just minimize, and that's the next document, contract for capital projects. This one-page contract, whenever we're doing any works with the vendor in the construction, even if we're doing audio video upgrades, we emphasize having a contract put in place. We want to use this one-page contract. You would fill in, again, name of owner, parish name and location, name of contractor, work to commence, finish, contract price, the amount, if there's going to be holdback, which is 10% most of the time, being held to the final payment, ensuring that things are done and are complete, and then we'll release holdback at the end, and then describing the work that would be done. This here would be then signed by the contractor first, and then returned. And we then request, with the capital expenditure being signed off, I guess, Andrew, you might want to touch on this, the sign off of the contracts.
Yeah, so the sign off on the contract, who can actually sign the contract? In this particular case, we would only have a contract provided the first application was completed. So if the first application has been completed, then we know that that expense has gone through a process and has been approved at the parish level, then it's approved at the diocesan level. Then ultimately, if it is an approved expense, then the pastor has the authority to sign off on that. The pastor can delegate that if they'd like to the business manager, if the business manager is going to be more closely involved with the project itself. But the chain of approval would just be going back to that initial application. So we'd look to make sure that everything is consistent and aligned with what has been approved, and then go forward from there. So it's with this particular contract, ultimately the pastor has the authority to sign this one, provided it's approved expense, unless they would like to delegate that to the business manager. So it's a bit of a case-by-case basis how each family of parishes like to operate, and we're happy again to answer any questions you may have about that one.
Thanks, Andrew. So we're just going to close the contract and going back to the list. We have guidelines for building a new church, bishop's directive regarding movement of tabernacle or renovation of the sanctuary space, accounting procedures for capital projects. So basically, that's the capital project listings, and then we move to maintenance. Building preventive maintenance policy. This policy has been established recently as well, back in 2021. Seems like yesterday. It basically was provided to parishes for them to become more knowledgeable of their building conditions throughout interior, exterior of the buildings, and to be completed by 2 or more people within the parish. And I know now, as we are a family of parishes, we still require each building to be reviewed. And this year we promote it at least twice a year, so spring and fall at the minimum. Basically, the cover page, family of parish names, then you would write in the parish, community name, and municipality here. And as we go through this, there's instructions, introductions, tabs go through this, emergency phone numbers, maintenance guidelines, the actual maintenance log, a documents log, equipment log, construction log, and semi-annual building and property inspection, which we'll focus in on. Some of you may have attended when we released this. We had a couple sessions for those to become more familiar with this document. And basically, it's been established once again just to get at least 2, 3, and maybe the caretaker, along with the building committee member, a volunteer, the business manager, to review the conditions of our buildings. Just emergency phone number listing. This we emphasize to have it printed and kept in the file, the most recent copy, along with the others that have been completed. Ensure you may PDF it and then have a copy on your computer. And just highlighting some introduction here. Maintenance log, we have some sample pages within this log that can support you. And once again, if you ever have any questions, feel free to reach out and get you some answers. Maintenance log, documents log of any documents on past projects that you have within the file. You can record here where they're kept. Documents. But basically, an equipment log as well. Just tracking the parish items. And just this here is a construction log of any past projects, including date, description of work, contractor name. Just having a good handle on what was done there. And keeping in mind too, as days go by, we all get older, so you might have some committee members that have great knowledge of the buildings and what was completed, along with your building condition report. So it's really helpful to fill all that in just to get it up to date. But here in the maintenance policy, we start off with the exterior. We're going to put in the spring inspection, fall inspection, the date, inspection before and by. So those 2, 3 members would be listed. And then you start off building 1, church, building 2, rectory, building 3, hall, and so forth. And then I won't go through each item, but basically starting off on the exterior, and then you go through from exterior walls, windows, louvers, doors, and completing roof, and then going into the interior conditions review. This takes a bit of time, so schedule your time accordingly. You may do, day 1, getting the exterior done, then day 2, looking at the interior, and looking at the mechanical electrical systems towards the end. Basically, overall appearance And you would have this once again saved and then a print copy in the file. Lawn care services agreement. Some of the parishes, that's great. We have a caretaker that's taking on cutting grass and doing those kind of spring cleaning and whatnot. Some have hired a service contractor to do that, and we have such an agreement in place to support you. It's detailing the insurance requirements to if you have a failure to perform, duration of the contract. Sometimes these are done annually. Sometimes you have a preferred contractor that you may put in a 3-year contract or have them set up for a 5-year. It really just depends, on the relationship that you have with them and the experience and how their services. More importantly, the snow removal services agreement is placed here as well to support you on snow removal. And this is very important to have completed and on file in the fall as the winter approaches. And once again, it's here to assist you in having that contract in place where you have the company cleaning off the parish parking lots, sidewalks, and so forth. And again, you'd have a contract in place for that. Part of that snow removal services agreement would be the winter maintenance log. Now, some service contractors have that already in their back pocket. You may have to you can ask those questions if they do have the maintenance log. We have one here to assist. And also when a caretaker is completing the clearing of sidewalks, let's say, they would then complete this for that winter season, including the date, the time, type of precipitation, and so forth on what was done for the maintenance of those areas.
Dino, can I just add on that winter maintenance log?
Sure.
So I can tell you from experience that if there's ever a slip and fall in the wintertime and Catholic Mutual contacts us, and one of the very first things they ask for is a copy of the winter maintenance log, because it shows that we did our due diligence to prevent any slips and falls. So it's really important if you can make sure that that log is maintained.
Thanks, Heidi. So like we said with that one, you can put that basically 2024, 2025, and then you'd have that for the upcoming winter, and then you make copies of this to have several pages. You basically create the log for the winter season. We also have, there are a few, but a vacant or unoccupied buildings procedure. We have, along with the CM here stands for Catholic Mutual, and they have provided us with several other maintenance policies for reference. Mold growth, property damage report, roof leaks, sprinkler system, sump pump, and so forth. They've also provided us some building safety policies, and they're listed there. Even the candle safety, choir loft safety, and so forth. But once again, these here can be found right on the website. I'll just show you once again, scrolling up under building and property, that's G. And once again, you'll scroll right down to the bottom of our main website and then click on policies, procedures. I don't know if we have any questions, Heidi.
I haven't seen any.
Can I speak just briefly about, we mentioned the Building and Loan Commission, but it's really helpful if a parish can have a building committee. It's not required to have a building committee. It's not like a canonical requirement like a finance committee, but it's just a really helpful committee of volunteers who may be able to do something like, you know, the annual checks or the semi-annual checks. And it's always tough right now to find volunteers. But if you put it out there and you have a group of people that have either worked in construction or have a great interest in the property and the building, could be even a subcommittee of your finance committee. It's just a great committee that's been quite helpful in a lot of different parishes to oversee some of this work and to make some recommendations to the finance committee to help set some priorities for capital projects as well. So it just sort of is one more group of people that can take on a little bit of the responsibility for the stewardship of the property. We don't have a terms of reference even for this type of building committee that is pretty operational in terms of the work that they do, and it's really just there to support the pastor and the parish in ensuring that they meet their responsibilities as stewards of the property. So just want to throw in a plug there for putting together a building committee. We're happy to discuss that more after the fact as well.
Okay, we do have a question. We're having issues finding a company that will sign the winter snow removal contract and not sure what I can do when this happens. I heard this is a problem in rural areas where there is not a lot of available companies.
Oh yeah, it's I forgot we're not, it's a webinar cell here too. So I think it would depend, Jim, on maybe why they're not signing the contract, and what their concerns would be. I think that I recall you have this issue last winter maybe, but without a little bit more detail might be, Heidi, I don't know if you recall or if you've seen this before.
I don't recall, no. I'm assuming it's probably the insurance aspect because I think we asked for 2 million.
Yeah.
So maybe that's the problem. You can hire somebody as an employee to do those kinds of things, but they'd have to be on your payroll. And you'd also have to provide them possibly with equipment if they don't already have it. But
Yeah,
yeah, putting them on as an employee is an option.
and the challenge certainly when it comes to insurance is if they don't have the type of insurance that we would require from our insurance company, it just increases liability issues. And we see this on like we regularly see claims related to slip and falls or different issues in the winter, but perhaps Jim, we could talk offline and see how we might be able to help with that one.
I know for Jim, your parishes are close to schools, and I'm sure the school board would have a similar requirement. So you may connect with them. That might be an option just to see on how they're getting their contracts completed and what the format is, because they would probably have a very similar setup to what we have.
Okay, we do have another question from Derek. What is your recommendation for secure file storage, both hard copy and electronic? How can those files be shared between the pastor, staff, and volunteers?
So Dina, how have you seen this work well in the past, especially when it comes to some of the bigger projects?
So number one, file storage for electronic, I must say you could touch base with IT on, how these are stored. Like obviously at the parish, there is a hard drive at the main office where files can be stored in a common location. It might be under, for example, capital projects, under maintenance, and that maintenance policy could be a good guide where you then save the related files that come after a project in the digital form. And I guess a more secure is where I'm saying touch base with IT. As far as print copies, printed documents, they should be stored in a dry location. And yes, if it's a closet, I have seen where, you know, depending on the size, some items are locked in the safe, but that's, you know, those are far and few. But basically, in a locked closet,
And
some of the project files are kept for the
they
parish.
should be kept certainly at the parish office site as well.
Right.
Not
Right.
not anywhere else. And then, as Dino said, when it comes to electronic file storage, we have secure file that can be shared as well through SharePoint, and our IT services can set that up with the parish. They may already have access to a shared drive as well, but certainly IT can advise in terms of how to share and give access to anyone, you know, if you have a building committee and they want to be able to monitor things, or they can certainly work with the parish to make sure that we have access to that secured shared drive. I hope that's helpful, Derek. If not, we can certainly chat after the fact as well.
I think what's helpful there is, for example, if there's a business manager in place, and with the staff, they'll organize their, we'll say, their tree on the computers, and create file storage for projects, maintenance, and it's a common location where people know that information is. It can be saved.
Anyone else banging down the door there, Heidi, for questions?
It's such an exciting topic.
I know, I think. Dino, you kept us on the edge of our seats there, so thank you.
It might really seem foreign and you know, complicated, but it's not. I think once you work with a project, some of you have just getting more familiar with our process. And as we walk through this, it becomes more and more easy to work with. And some of you done some of these already, but our door's always open if you have any questions or concerns. I'm more than happy to take that even after this meeting.
Heidi, are you able to share our contact information either on a share screen, or so everybody can see that to know how to get a hold of us?
Hang on. Where'd it go? I can't. Just a minute. There's another question while I'm trying to figure this out. Does the diocese have dates of the last building review? The formal big one.
So,
go ahead, Dino.
sorry, I was just going to say which parish.
Unless they're actually referring to when we had the appraisals done by the insurance company. That was a diocese-wide initiative.
Yeah, so it depends on which building. It could be the building condition report, which would be varied. The one done by, so
Oh,
I assume that's the building condition report then that Jim's
Yeah.
referring to.
Yeah, Jim says no.
So Jim, okay, that's the ones. Yeah. So if we will have that, I mean, we don't have that because it was done different times, but we can certainly get that for you. They're not short, like they're big, thick documents, but we can certainly get you something. Especially if you're moving into a parish as a business manager and have not seen that, or we would have copies of the building condition reports. Dino's got a full library behind him that you can't quite see on screen there, but
We do have some in PDF formats, and it makes it easy to guide and manage. At the same time, though, it is good to have a print copy as the students are down, have that available as well.
Okay, I'm mindful of time here as we approach 11 o'clock, but I don't want to keep everybody if there's not any other questions that could be addressed. But again, I think Heidi put our phone numbers in under Derek's question there, and we're happy to speak with you more on the phone if you had any questions at all. Again, some of it can seem to be overwhelming, but all of these things are intended to be tools to make things a little easier in terms of a little bit more straightforward and direct. So it can be a complicated endeavor when it comes to managing some of these buildings, particularly when it comes to insurance and construction projects. But that's why we're here. We're here to help and address any of those questions. And we have pretty easy access and direct lines to our team at Catholic Mutual as well. If there are insurance questions, we get pretty quick responses from there. If it's anything related to construction or projects, or depending on the municipality, we can certainly provide support and get answers to questions relatively quickly, depending on what it is. But this is why we're here to make sure that we offer support that we can. I see one more question came in there. What is it?
Go ahead, Andrews.
Yeah, so what is the process for getting funds from the parish loan fund to pay for approved project when the invoice comes? So this assumes we're at the stage now where the work has been completed. You now have received the invoice. Dino, did you want to tackle that one?
Sure. So with the capital expenditure being signed off from the pastor, finance committee, and the business manager, and then with our approval from Andrew, we know that, let's say, $50,000 has been approved. We will manage the costs, the invoices as they come in. So the contractor, upon completing half the cost, will send an invoice for $25,000. We will review that. If we have a consultant on board or an agent, we'll discuss that, review, ensure that the work is completed. We will then provide the parish. It would go, if there is a business manager, an email to the business manager, basically that we support the payment of this, and will you require funds transferred from the loan, the parish loan, the parish loan, the loan fund. Would you need funds from the loan fund, the parish loan fund? And if you do, you reply, and then I'll take care of getting accounting to make that. I'll request the transfer, and that transfer would then the 25,000, half of 50 would get deposited in the parish fund, and then the parish office could release a check to the contractor. So that's basically the process that we have. It's as the invoices come to us, they get reviewed, and then we would then review that with the parish and get funds transferred. And if the parish does have funds in place at the parish level, that is it can then be paid that way as well.
Yeah, and we didn't get into the nitty-gritty of the actual operation of the loan fund itself. We were really looking more at the actual project side of it, but very quickly, if there was a loan required to complete the work, there are parameters within there as well, including that the parish will be able to have 70% of the funds available to support the project, and a maximum loan of 30% can be granted to support the remainder of the project. So anything that would be related to requirement for a loan would go to our building and loan fund as well, and then that would be part of the pre-approval process. But we didn't get into the nitty-gritty of the loan fund, but happy to answer any questions that may come up about that as well. And it's relatively straightforward to deal with that internally. For the transfers and so on, it's not complicated. We can make it happen fairly quickly. Work with our accounting team here, and as Dino said, he kind of makes all the pieces come together, and away we go. All right. Well, I think don't want to cut any additional questions up, but not seeing any more questions come in. Again, we're happy to speak more to this. Hopefully this has been somewhat helpful. I know it's a very high level summary and overview. We just felt that with some of the updates to the capital projects policy in particular, it was a good chance to sort of highlight some of the key things to pay attention to. And then some of the other maintenance policies and things to look at along the way. And some of the key tools we've put together. If you have feedback on the tools, if you had questions, concerns, ways to make them better or improve, we're all ears. We would love to know that, and some of the challenges that you may face in working with them. And we can have a further conversation about how to make this a little easier for parishes and to help us all fulfill our roles as stewards of these great properties. So thank you all for joining us this morning. If you had questions, follow up whenever you'd like, and we'll get back to you as quickly as we can. But I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. And this, I think, will be ended up being as a recording. So if you really needed to go through it again and get a good jolt to your day, you're welcome to do that. I think at another time it will be posted online. So thank you, Dino, for leading us through that, and Heidi for making all the logistics happen, and the perspective and expertise you have related to our insurance and the history of a lot of these policies and processes too. So thank you, everyone. Wish you many blessings, and we will continue to keep you all in our prayers.